I think I used that one before, but either way, what's up?
I like it. Good one. No,
Yeah.
seriously, because it's interesting because it gives you. It starts out like it's almost got like that trap beat a little bit,
hmm
and it feels like it's going to be kind of like hard the whole time, but then it mellows out at the end. So I feel like it
Something
just transitions into the episode smooth.
something that is like I look, I don't know if you're a big like nap on the weekend guy,
Hmm.
but something that is like the go-to move for me. So Saturday mornings I have to produce a show here at the station. Then
Hmm.
usually when we're not thrown off completely, we record this podcast. And
Hmm.
then when I go home, because I've been up since 5:30 in the morning, and by the time I get home it's like 11 or 12, I'm like ready for like a good nap. Then I go hit the beach. That nap, I have such a good nap if I sit down and I ask like Alexa to put on some lo-fi hip hop beats.
Hmm.
Oh, dude, I just zone out and I'm just like out like a light. And I wake up and the music's still playing and I'm like, oh, I'm so vibed out right now, you know?
I'm so vibed out right now. No, I do know. I don't really think I nap on the weekends that much, but that's also just because I'm not getting up at 5:30 in the
Yeah,
morning like you.
that's
I'm
fair.
usually just sleeping in. Um, I mean, when we would go out back in the day,
Yeah.
because we're both washed, as you know, um, that power nap was essential. But that was
Yeah.
more of like a 6 a.m. or 6 a.m., 6 p.m., like to 7 p.m. or like 7:30, something like that. That was a straight official business power nap. That was like, yo, I need to get to sleep and I got to get up hard time. There's
Yeah.
no relaxation with it. So you would like it. But there was also a little bit of that, I'm not here to really relax. I'm here to just, handle business before we go out.
I agree. All right, so let's talk basketball stuff. Some things we want to get into today. Obviously, there were some extensions and trades and things we got to get in. So we're going to talk about the Pat Bev trade, the Marcus Smart extension, Embiid extension. I personally am excited to recap Malice at the Palace because I think the documentary did change my mind about a few things, and so that'll be kind of cool to get into because I remember watching it happen, and I remember when everybody was talking about it, but, it's been a while, obviously, and I think they did a good job talking about everything and the legal side of it that probably didn't get as much press after the fact. So,
Hmm.
um, we did wanna jump into 2 things, though, before we really kick off the episode, and the first warm-up jumper that I wanted to bring up is a tradition unlike any other. NBA2K has been putting out some ratings,
Yep.
and NBA players are upset
Yep.
because, of course, they are.
Yep.
So,
Always.
oh yeah. So far there are 4 players rated over 90,
Hmm.
and that is Dame Lillard, Luca, James Harden, and Jason Tatum.
Okay.
And that's not saying anybody else in the NBA is under 90. That's just the ones that have come out so far. Now,
Okay.
the other social media around it is KD. I believe it was a TikTok, NBA 2K's TikTok, if I remember correctly, was on it saying he should be rated 99. I feel like him and maybe like 2 others would have that argument, so I don't hate it. Trae Young was upset, saying that they get it wrong every single year. He's rated an 89 this year.
Hmm.
And Steph Curry, I think I mentioned that. Maybe I missed that on my. Maybe it's 5 players above 90. Because Steph Curry is rated a 96, and LeBron retweeted it saying that Curry should be a 99.
Well, I guess my question is, so I guess it's how do you value a 99 in terms of 2K? Like, is a
Yeah,
99 a perfect, these guys in their primes, one season at their best? It's this holy grail of you can't reach any other rating. We only give it out to special occasions type deal. Because if that's the case, then I totally understand somebody like Steph Curry or somebody like KD
sure.
being a 96, where it's like, yeah, no, they're as close as you can get. But maybe they're not in their primes or whatever. Like Steph Curry, for example, like the 2016 season, when he was unanimous MVP, would be his 99 year. But if we're going off who are the best players in the league right now, and that's kind of what you want to have 99 as, it seems like it's the standard. Then yeah, I don't understand. I mean, to me, KD, Steph, and Giannis after the finals run, they have to all be 99s to me if I'm looking at that. And then at that point, I mean, you could argue for Kawhi, you could argue for James Harden. I mean, I did see Harden's. Harden is a 94 is egregious. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Um, Given how much, I mean, this is a guy who's in the MVP conversation every year. like at worst, he's what, the fifth, sixth best player in the league. Like I feel like that's
Well, they
definitely
tied
low.
him. They tied him. If I'm reading this correct, Dame, Luca, and Harden are all 94s.
Yeah, I feel like that's just a little disrespectful. Like I think Harden is a little better than Luca and Dame at this point. Like it's not a lot better. Like I think these are all top 10 players. We're
Sure.
really pulling hairs here, splitting hairs here. But yeah, I don't think Harden to me, just given the body of work, like
Yeah.
we're valuing Luca off that
See,
off a couple of seasons. Like I'm not willing to put Harden at that level.
I kind of like the idea of, and I don't know when NBA changed this, but in my mind, I like the idea of 99 was like unattainable.
Right.
It's Barstool Pizza review. You don't ever get a 10. You're never going to get a 10 because nobody's 100% perfect. You save that for like the legend teams, when you go
Mhm.
back and you play as the certain season Warriors, that's when Curry's a 99.
Yeah.
You don't play as Curry this year, who's in the league as a 99, because we don't know what this year's going to be.
Right. Well, and I agree with that. And if that's the standard that it truly
Yeah,
is, then I'm okay with that. But I mean, I think some players, like if Michael Jordan has to be a 99, if that's
sure.
the golden standard, like I don't agree
But
with that. We never give out 10s because nothing's ever perfect. Like, I
no,
mean,
but see,
what is
I think
perfect?
for me with Jordan, like you'd have to go back and find the year that you would say he was the best year of his career, and that's the year that he's a 99. Then everything else is less from there. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna go to his rookie year and make him a 99 compared to some of his runs. So like I feel like that's once the 99 should be held for like a career in review type situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I mean, at that point, it's just figuring out what the prime year is, or if there's a
Yeah,
couple years, for example,
sure.
it'd be the same situation with LeBron. Going back, at some point in the '80s with Magic Johnson, with Larry Bird, with Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain. If you're playing on those legendary type teams, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like run down the list with legends.
Mhm.
I guess my question is then too, but because it gets tricky for me because it's like who achieved that level that we consider a 99? Like,
Yeah,
what does that look like? Is it an MVP year? Is it, what players did we think have that in their arsenal? And so, to that extent, I guess that's why I would have the
sure.
99 just be the best. Like, to me, it should just be the best players in the league at any given year. Like, maybe your top one, two, three guys. Um, but
See,
I don't,
but then I like the fact that if it isn't like that, like you have a year where the top guy's a 98. So then
mhm.
you're saying like this year the talent was a little less than the years before or after. Like you leave a little room for that argument.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair. Like I think because I think there are years maybe where it's a
Sure.
little closer and it's a little more
Or
like I mean,
injuries. Like if you have an injury and your
yeah.
top three players in the league are out, well, then maybe, it's gonna be
Well,
a little
right.
lower.
I mean, 2 years ago when Kevin Durant didn't play the entire season, that
Sure.
first year when he signed with Brooklyn, it's like, well, where do you evaluate him? If he's playing,
Sure.
obviously he's the best player in the league, but he's not playing this year. So it's like, what do you,
Yeah, so you
would
can't.
that be the season where you dock him points because he's injured a little bit? But I mean, like you said, or I believe the competition for top player in the league right now is so close. Like you could make the argument this year for three guys, but to that point, are any of them a 99 because it's not a just solo race the way it's felt with LeBron in the past few years, where he's been so dominant that no one's been able to knock him off. Like I said, I mean, I personally think Kevin Durant right now is the best player in the NBA. But if someone came to me and said, "Yo, I think Steph Curry is," "Yo, I think Giannis is," I'm not really going to argue with you. Like it's pretty, they're pretty both compelling arguments on their sides.
I agree. And then the other part of it, Trey Young and Luca are always going to be compared to each other, obviously for the trade and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, and it's just based off the finals run a little bit, Trey should be closer to Luca, or Luca should be closer to Trey Young in the ratings because Trey went further in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I don't. If we're talking individual players, and I mean, I don't
I
think they
know
should be far apart. Like, I don't get me wrong. I think that gap, like I said,
five.
I'll eat
Yeah,
crow on Trey Young. That gap is a lot closer than I thought it was initially when that trade happened.
sure,
But I don't really. I mean, Atlanta had a better like filled out roster. I mean, Luca wasn't the reason they weren't going to the second round of the playoffs or
yeah.
going far. It was the supporting cast. Atlanta, we saw it had way more depth than we expected, or I think most people expected. So I'm not going to fault Luca for that, but I do think they're close though. I like what do they have, a 4 point difference?
94 to 89.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. You could
But
bump Trey up
I
maybe a
think
point.
Well, but I think there's a whole thing in making Trey in the 90s, like I think that that sets a level of expectation with Trey that I don't think NBA 2K was ready to do yet. So I think the only way they would be able to achieve something like that is docking Luka a few points just to get it closer. If that specifically were the case.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So
I mean, Trey is in that with the mentality with most people where I think that it is. I think he solidified himself to a lot of people for sure. I think there are a
mhm,
lot of people who are going to go. If you're going to
do it
take that
again.
next step into like consistent superstardom, you want to see if they can repeat the success that they had last year.
No, I agree. So the whole do it again mentality, I get it. The other warm up jumper we wanted to hit real quick, Summer League, the Sacramento Kings beating the Boston Celtics to win NBA Summer League. It is their first league title since 2014, although I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So, um, does that do anything for you?
Hey man, let the Kings enjoy their summer league championship. Kings fans have had a rough go of it the past, well, 15 years. It feels like it's been
Yeah,
quite a while. No, I mean it doesn't move the needle for me in the sense that I don't think it means anything really, but it's a fun little note to shout out to the guys. Those are guys playing for fighting on the NBA rosters, and in the sense where somebody like Davion Mitchell, for example, looks really good for Sacramento in summer league. I think that you have to be excited about that. My thing with Sacramento and Davion Mitchell just kind of remains is in the sense that
yeah,
I think he's going to be a really solid NBA player, but I don't know. Like, I just don't know what the fit is there. I guess that's my
sure.
question with Sacramento is it feels just repetitive when you have De'Aaron Fox already in the lineup.
Sure. I got well, and to that, we actually had someone mention us on our YouTube episode 2 weeks ago where we were talking about the draft in general. We were
Mhm.
recapping the draft, and Kings fan, so I have a feeling you know where this is going. Commented saying, "What do you guys think about trading Fox and then building around Mitchell and Halliburton?" And to that, I think you probably could get a good amount for Fox. So there is an angle there to get some more depth or to get another player at another position. And
Mhm.
then to that, I think something that we did see in Summer League was Mitchell's ability to play defense, which is something the Kings have had a little bit of trouble with. So, maybe that adds an element of that to it. But there's something I don't know. If Fox is your guy, like you've been putting a lot of time into Fox, so I feel weird about that as well.
Yeah, I'm not trading De'Aaron Fox for just. I mean, it feels like that would kick the can down the road
Right.
unnecessarily. Like, I
Right.
think the fit is weird, but you try to figure it out. And you nailed the Halliburton pick last year. Like, he was, like we said, he finished second of the year in Rookie of the Year voting. He
Yeah.
looks like he could definitely be a part of their future going forward. It just feels weird. Like, unless it's a part of a superstar package, like if they're making a Ben Simmons deal, maybe I consider it then. But I don't. You've invested a lot
Well,
into De'Aaron Fox. He's been one of your few bright spots there. Like he's been a successful draft story. Like if there are guys you want to move on from in Sacramento, but I don't know why you just give away. I don't think you just give away players like that are talented. Like De'Aaron Fox, this is a guy you just signed under contract. I like Davion Mitchell too. I think he's going to be good, but I'm not about to just blow the thing up because of summer league.
how crazy would that be? You go from a team that's very, very offensive focused and not necessarily there defensively, and then you trade Fox and somehow get Ben Simmons in there, and then you got two guys that are more defense than offensive focus. It's like you just total 180 the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know why you would if you're Sacramento. Like
Yeah,
you have these young guys, you see if they play together, and if the fit's not working, sure, then you reevaluate that situation. But I don't think De'Aaron Fox is going to lose his value. Like that's the other thing is this isn't
yeah,
a situation where again, not to bring it back to Ben, but it's not a situation like Ben where you do risk potentially losing value if he doesn't figure it out and get better if he continues to stay on this roster. There's not that still potential element of it. De'Aaron Fox is pretty highly respected around the league. It feels like I don't think
I
they're
agree.
just going to get rid of him for nothing.
No, I agree with you on that.
Well, welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Thank you. As if I didn't need more fuel to my fire. Hashtag washed.
God, this is like I appreciate LeBron keeping the narratives going. I genuinely consider this being my fallen for a little bit this week because I just think this is stupid. Um,
Okay.
but And again, because so the whole motive for this, for anyone who's not familiar, is that this is the first time that LeBron got 0 votes as the best player in the league, in the anonymous players and
Yep.
scouts and coaches poll and executives poll and all that. I don't really think, like, I appreciate LeBron and really the whole Lakers group in general. I think using between Russ and between Melo too, using the whole like we're older, we're gonna be the old guys to get this done. Like I feel you guys, like do
Go for it.
prove people wrong because you are kind of bucking the trend with that in the league a little bit right now. But I mean, I guess this is it goes back to the point we were doing with NBA player ratings. Like this is the first season in a while that I don't think LeBron is by far unanimously the best player in the league. Like he's always had KD kind of running in the wings for a little bit, but listen, given injuries, given the way they went out, like LeBron's gonna be 37 years old. Like
Yeah.
I just have to call it as I see it at some point. I respect the motivation, but I'm also just like, I hate that. It was like when Tom Brady a couple years ago was saying, "We're the underdogs. People don't believe in us." It's like maybe that was true in Tampa this year when it was a whole new squad, but like when you were with the Patriots, like who doesn't believe in you, Tom Brady?
Yeah.
You've won 7 Super Bowls.
Yeah, hey, look, it's like the MJ documentary. You got to find any reason to kind of motivate yourself. And to that, it was said in that article that it I think the quote was, "It's clear there are all three stars were on the same level to themselves at this point." And they were talking about KD and Giannis who tied. And
Mhm.
then they said LeBron was mentioned but didn't get votes. So they still said LeBron is in the top 3 tier, behind essentially KD and Giannis at this point. And if he feels that's a slight, then that's what he feels. But it's not like they just didn't even remotely mention him at all. It's like his name came up, they talked about him, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's the motivation. I also think it's honest. Like
Mhm.
it's just kind of what it is. It happens sometimes. Everybody gets old, even some of the greatest of all time.
Sure.
Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. Hopefully, you think we're the greatest of all time. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, good or bad, we will read them here on the show. If you're not an Apple user, we're anywhere you can find a podcast: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Spotify, Player FM, TuneIn. No matter what you're doing, if you need a break from life, we're there for you.
Yep, and be sure to follow us on YouTube. We've been getting a few comments, so we'll be sure to mention those. We actually had Andrew come in, and we are obviously already mentioned Kings fan, and I got to respond to him, let him know that we answered his question on this podcast. But Andrew Morgan, who has been listening to the podcast for quite some time, said, "Justin, I need your opinion on which dishwashing liquid I should use." Great show, guys. A really fun one, which he was talking about our last episode, which you can go back and listen.
So like dish soap or like dishwashing liquid?
He said dishwashing liquid.
Because like if I'm
Ugh.
putting something in the dishwasher, I'd use the pods at this point, like the Cascade
Yeah.
pods or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, yeah. Like, could you imagine living in a time where we didn't have that? Like, that
I
would
know
be
it's
terrible.
crazy. Those 6 years ago it was a really untamed time.
I just
Um,
I just didn't wash my clothes or wash my dishes at that point.
I think we have Dawn right now, maybe for like the regular. No,
Listen,
or no, we have Ajax. Excuse me, we have Ajax right now.
okay, Ajax is a superhero, I thought. Isn't Ajax a superhero?
Ajax is in Greek mythology. Yeah, he had a big hammer. Actually, there were 2 Ajaxes in Greek mythology, which is really weird. I don't know why.
Okay.
But the one that everybody knows is with the hammer. He's in the Iliad, which is, where it
Yeah.
doesn't happen in the Iliad. That's another misconception. The Iliad is about the Battle of Troy, which ends with the
Yes.
Trojan horse.
Yep.
But the Trojan horse doesn't happen in the Iliad.
So
So,
so for me, and this is total like advertising worked on me in
uh
this scenario. The commercial of the cutest animals that are just like all oiled up, and then Dawn
huh.
comes in and cleans them off.
Like, do
I
they get the ducks in the oil spill?
So, dude, Dawn always has a spot for me, and I always get Dawn just because that cute little duck on the damn front of the thing. I'm like, oh, you're so clean because of them. I need to get you.
It is. It's very adorable. I'm glad that the ducks got saved from the oil spill. Also, I hope that oil companies stop spilling oil in the damn ocean. That would be great.
That
And
would that
people
would that
stop
would help.
polluting in the oceans. That would be really cool. We don't need any more plastic trash in there.
Is there
Um,
any other like actual dish soaps other than Ajax and Dawn though?
I don't know. I mean, store brand for sure. Like whatever, pick your grocery chain of choosing. Um,
I guess like I feel like there's those are the pods, the Finish and the Cascade.
no, oh yeah, like you said, it's dishwasher. Jet Dry is related to dishwashers.
Gain is Gain one? I feel
No,
like
I
Gain.
think Gain just does laundry detergent. I mean, maybe they
You might
do.
be
I think they
right.
just do laundry detergent, but I feel like that's an easy crossover. You know what I mean? Um,
Most
though I don't think
expensive.
Tide has one either. Like Tide doesn't have a hand soap.
Let's see. I'm looking up most expensive dishwashing liquid. Why is this so much? Oh, just because it's a lot.
What does
That's
it
not good.
do?
I it says Ivory. This thing called Ivory, although it's not that expensive. So I feel like they're not. I feel like Google's failing
I
me
thought
right now.
Ivory was like the hand soap because that's a super soft hand soap.
It says dish soap.
Does
I don't know.
Dial have one?
I feel like Dial does have one.
I feel like Dial has one too.
Yeah.
And I knew Dial was legit because when I cleaned buses, which was another job that I did back in the day, in the summertime, I cleaned school buses, and the mechanics who would work on them would always use Dial soap in their bathroom. And obviously, like you would have insanely dirty hands if you were working on a massive bus diesel engine.
Yeah.
So if it's good enough to clean that, I feel like it's good enough to clean everything.
Listen, if it can clean that, it can get that grimy little food that's stuck to your plate off. I'm
Yeah,
sure of it.
right, exactly. Yeah, you can get my leftover chicken parm from 3 days ago off.
Ooh.
Listen, you
Yeah.
gotta let the red sauce soak though. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Um, yeah, shout out to Ajax too. I really I enjoyed that Greek mythology. I like Greek mythology a lot. I'll always have we'll make a spin-off Greek mythology podcast one day in honor of Giannis. And now a word from our sponsors.
So let's jump right into um, Joel Embiid's extension because we're homers. And the 76ers are giving him a 4-year, $196 million extension. Do you like it? Do you hate it? My first takeaway was you kind of had to do it. Regardless of how you feel about it, you have to do this.
Is there anyone that feels bad about this if you're a Sixers fan? Like I would be extremely of course you supermax him. He's a supermax talent.
Sure, I think health is still a scare, which is something we dealt with last year in the playoffs. You know, like he wasn't 100%. He had the meniscus stuff. I feel like obviously in seasons past, injuries have been a worry. So this to me is he deserved it. And I'm not saying he doesn't. He deserved this money. But if you're going to do this, now you need to like Ben Simmons was supposed to be the number 2. It's obviously not the way it's going to be. He needs a number 2, and he needs a number 2 that's going to have a ton of production to take the full load off of him.
Yeah,
Is kind of where I'm at with it.
yeah, and of course, and that's something that they need to address, and they need to
Yes.
hopefully figure out if they decide to move on from Ben Simmons. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that Joel Embiid just finished second in MVP
Agreed.
voting. He's been the backbone of the franchise since he's been drafted, really, and since he's come off those injuries. Of course, injuries are a concern. I don't think Joel Embiid, as much as I love him with all of my heart, is going to have a long career like a
No.
LeBron James did, where he looks like he could be playing until 40, like somebody like I think Steph Curry can. Somebody that like Embiid is a center. He's a big man. They take more punishment. Like that's just always been the nature.
And by the end of
game.
this, he'll be 30.
He'll be 32 by the time
32?
his contract ends. And so at the time, like you're paying for a superstar in his prime right now.
Yep.
These are the deals that these guys get. And this is the easiest no-brainer contract that the Sixers have probably ever given out. You sign Joel Embiid, you don't think twice about it, and you figure out the roster because you know what Joel Embiid does because he's that good? He keeps the window open and says, if somebody's there, if you can fill out this roster, you're going to at least have a shot to contend every single year, and that's all you can ask for.
A Damian Lillard?
A Damian Lillard would be great. A Bradley Beal would be great. Anybody, come home, please.
Let me ask. Okay, so this will kind of transition us. We'll get to the Marcus Smart extension here in a second, but and I promise this will all make sense here in a second. Patrick Beverly was traded kind of twice, and so now he is on the Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
There has been some rumors that they are linked with him and potentially a third team to try to create a deal that would involve Patrick Beverly ending up with the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a lot of other things would change. Ben Simmons would be going somewhere, probably the Timberwolves, I would assume, in this scenario. But the reason it's brought up is Woj has hinted at it, and a few other of the reporters have like mentioned that something's happened. and I think it might have been Woj or somebody else kind of said that the Timberwolves don't have any like win now assets other than technically Patrick Beverly now. So you would need to potentially get a third team involved for a situation like that. But the whole thing spawns off the fact that the Timberwolves have been persistent in trade talks with the 76ers involving Simmons, if you believe the rumors.
Well, I don't agree fully that they don't have any win now assets. Like, I think if you get D'Angelo Russell on the Sixers, he probably elevates that team's floor in terms of a
Sure.
fit, and I think it makes a lot more sense. Now, I think, is that the value necessarily that you want back if you're a Sixers fan? Not 100%
What,
there.
Patrick Beverly and Russell?
Yeah, well, it's not as I mean, those both obviously both of those guys would contribute to right now, and that's the thing. The
Right.
Timberwolves, I think, could make packages definitely where they can make, and I think there are other teams in general as well that could make packages that equal Ben Simmons' value. It's just with the Embiid thing, it's the win now makes it a lot more complex than it would otherwise.
Sure.
If you throw Anthony Edwards in the mix too, which I don't think Minnesota's looking to move on from Anthony Edwards, so I think that that's a moot point. But I think he's another one where, yeah, you could pry Ben Simmons for me if you throw Anthony Edwards in the mix. But I
I
don't know that Anthony Edwards is a win now guy
right.
necessarily. Like, I think, this is a kid who's going to be 20
I
years
did
old. It's
well,
still a
and I
ton
don't
of
think that
upside
and I don't think they would do that. I think the idea that they want in the trade is you get Ben Simmons, you have
to play with Edwards
Edwards,
and D'Lo and Cat.
and yes, well, not even D'Lo. I think Cat and Edwards is the idea. Is then you have those three and you work off that if D'Lo has to go.
It does feel like, though, that because obviously just because their relationship off the court too, like D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns are super good friends. This is a situation where
Sure.
we haven't
You
really
mean
had
Simmons?
we haven't had the opportunity to fully evaluate them, I guess is my point.
Sure. Sure.
Because we talked about their injuries. It was like Towns was hurt and then dealing with COVID issues, and D'Angelo Russell missed a significant amount of time. So we only had a small sample size of them playing together. Then you have Anthony Edwards in the mix. Like, I going to trade Pat Beverly in a move like, for example, like letting somebody like a Jared Culver go, a guy who you just took number 6 overall, like that to me, I don't necessarily agree that Minnesota's not trying to win now. I do think they're trying to move this core ahead a little bit. I think that's exactly the type of move that you do by going out to get a vet like Beverly. Like, I think they're trying to get Towns, and because I mean, the only time Karl Anthony Towns has been in the playoffs is with Jimmy Butler, and we all know how that turned out. Andrew Wiggins is gone, Zach LaVine is gone. So at that point, yeah, I think they want to see what this core can do, but they want
Well,
them to get that playoff experience because they want to give them that continued incentive to be here long term and build, get that experience for Anthony Edwards is now. Now, I don't know that they're going to win now necessarily, and I don't necessarily even think that that's the right decision. I think you should continue to develop. Like, Anthony Edwards is still very young. Let these wins come organically. You've got Towns still locked in for a bit, but I feel like they want to see what they have with that core before they blow it up. But I
sure.
understand them being involved with Ben Simmons, and I think they are one of the few teams who I do realistically think they could probably Ben Simmons. Like, D'Angelo Russell might be the best caliber player
Well,
you get in a Ben Simmons
and
deal. And if it gets a situation where it becomes toxic, you may have to pull the trigger.
and to that, I know you mentioned D'Lo and Cat being good friends. I'm pretty sure Ben Simmons and Cat are also good friends, at least from seeing the streaming stuff that they do from time to time. So I'd
Yeah.
imagine the chemistry side of it would be a fit. But the other side of that is the way that Patrick Beverly ended up with the Grizzlies, which was the first part of this situation. Was Beverly was traded from the Clippers, and the Grizzlies sent back Eric Bledsoe. So now Eric Bledsoe on the Clippers. Does that do anything for you?
It's interesting, and because obviously Bledsoe's got a ton of heat here in
Sure.
the past few years.
Yeah.
For his shortcomings in Milwaukee, and then he's kind of been relegated, bounced around a little bit. A homecoming of sorts. Obviously, Eric Bledsoe started his career with the Clippers. I am a little surprised to see the Clippers make this move. Like, initially when I saw this trade, I just kind of was like, why? The Clippers
Hmm.
had a good thing going last year. I think their injuries away from the finals. And so to that point, I mean, Beverly obviously has been, I mean, hell, it was a few seasons ago, we were talking about him and Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams, and all of them are gone, which is really crazy to see. I mean, they
Yeah.
were the culture at one point. There's that now infamous video of them all celebrating together when, the Clippers landed Kawhi and PG initially. it's interesting because I think Eric Bledsoe, and they brought Reggie Jackson back as well, but Eric Bledsoe could, in theory, elevate them even higher. But I don't know. It doesn't move the needle for me too much, I guess. Like, I don't really think it changes anything. And I think it could end up making them worse in the short term, as crazy as that sounds.
Well, and I think, you're with Patrick Beverly, you're kind of losing the guy with that intensity, the guy that can kind of fire up the team potentially and is willing to guard the star of the team if Kawhi can't do it, or if Kawhi's injured for whatever reason or something like that. Like he's like Patrick Beverly was the guy that would do it. He was the dog. He'll grind it out with you, and he's going to make your life miserable. Just ask, anybody that's had to go up against him. They always seem to get really frustrated with him. So you lose that in a way, and can the Clippers replace that? But is there someone else on the team that can now replace that whole situation? I don't know.
Rondo's gone as well, and
Mhm.
so the Clippers' books get a little muddy here with Bledsoe on the books. Obviously, Bledsoe's got a big contract. You know, man, it's tough for me because there are times like I do feel like he could elevate their ceiling because Bledsoe is not going to have to be the guy here. Like he's going
Sure.
to have more freedom to drive and cut, which he's good at. Um, you know, teams are going to key in way more on Kawhi and Paul George. I don't know. It feels like he could fit, but he also just, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've seen him underperforming recently. And so it's hard for me to just totally be a buy-in on this Eric Bledsoe fit, because like you said, I think it changes the culture a lot there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it does, because I feel like Patrick Beverly was a big part of the culture there. And he had been there for so long. So, you know, it's it was a surprise that that is the way that it went, but now here we are, and it was weird because he got traded and then traded. So, if Patrick Beverly does end up staying with Minnesota, I think that's an awesome fit for him too. I think same idea is for a young Timberwolves team, he can provide that spark, that spunk, that defensive just grind it out mentality that I think they
Mhm.
could use. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Timberwolves are objectively better on paper today.
mhm.
I do think, they're believers in Culver, and that's why I think it's a good deal for Memphis in the sense that like
Yeah,
Memphis is still rebuilding. I know they've been successful last year, and we talked about the steps they took to make the playoffs, but Memphis to me is still in that build, develop your young talent mode. So, Jarrett Culver is exactly the type of guy you take a flyer on and just say that, hey, you know what? Maybe it wasn't working out in this situation. Like we said, this is a guy who went number 6 pretty recently. So I'm just not about, that's the type of swab deal that you want to make if you're in Memphis to me.
yeah, and I think I just wonder what what's next for Memphis other than developing. Like, at what point are we making the move to we're setting expectation now, and we got close to it next year. So are we going into, or we got close to it last year? Are we going into this next year now saying, okay, we expect you to make I don't know, at least make it to the playoffs, or even the second round of the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're ready for that, but is the team going to do that because of the competition that they're going to be going up against? I don't know.
Yeah, I think with the Clippers too, it is worth mentioning going back to them. Like there was a bit of a roster crunch. So they did clear up some space there, like quite literally by trading 3 players out of there. I guess the point, like the Clippers are betting that this is really going to boost their bench. Like Pat Beverly is great with Kawhi and Paul George, but I don't think there's any planet where anyone thinks Patrick Beverly is going to be an offensive dynamo off the bench. And if one of them is sitting, it doesn't quite fit as well. Where it's like, now with Eric Bledsoe, you definitely can have a little more punch there. You can
Sure.
stagger your lineups. Obviously, you may not have Kawhi next year, so I think he may be relied on to be that too a little bit more. But like you said, this is a situation where even compared to his time in Milwaukee, he's not going to be asked to create quite as much. Like there are
Yeah.
more options there. It feels like.
So, over to Marcus Smart, who agreed to a 4-year, $77 million contract extension.
Hmm.
One of the elite defenders in the NBA. I think that's worth saying. I also read that the Celtics offered Smart the most money they could under the terms of the CBA, so it's not like they shortchanged him or anything like that. But to that, Stephen A has been very vocal, saying that there's no way and no situation where Marcus Smart should be making less than 20 mil a season. Do you agree with that? Obviously, it's not like the Celtics could have offered him more if that's the case with the CBA.
No, so it's interesting because Marcus Smart's a guy who kind of came up in a bunch of trade rumors recently,
Yeah.
which I always thought that was interesting because it's like, hey, Marcus Smart, we just talked about Pat Bev with the Clippers. Marcus Smart has been like the culture guy in Boston here for the past few seasons.
Hmm.
And we kind of when we were talking about the top of the East, I don't feel like we talked about Boston enough when we were
Sure.
mentioning when we were talking about
Sure.
Philly and we were talking about Miami and we were talking about Brooklyn and Milwaukee and even Atlanta too.
I
All
thought
these
we
other
were doing
spots.
it. I thought we were doing it on purpose because
We're hating a little bit because they make us feel better a
I
little bit.
almost got myself in trouble, but yes.
So, I mean, Marcus Smart, he had career highs last year in terms of points and assists. The production or the efficiency was down though. His shooting was down. He was below 40% overall,
Sure.
just 33% from behind the arc. Um, Udoka said recently that their plan is to have him as the primary playmaker. Obviously, Kemba Walker's not in the mix there anymore, so he can be their
Mhm.
starting point guard. I think there are a lot of people who were saying that he should be their starting point guard anyway in Boston. But I mean, more importantly, like I think it locks him in with Jason Tatum. It locks him in with Jalen Brown. This is your core they're going to build around. Brad Stevens now in the front office has displayed his affection and love for Marcus Smart many times. The city loves him. They love the way he plays. He's one of those guys who you love him if he's on your team. You hate playing against him. So I think this is a good deal overall for Boston. Like it's hard. I'm hard pressed to find any issue with this. I
Yeah.
don't think this was an overpay. They didn't supremely max him or something like that. I will say that for next summer, if you're hoping that Boston can land some marquee free agent, I think that that's probably out the window a little bit. They're not going to have that max space necessarily, but you already have two guys that you feel like you're pretty confident around building around. I mean, Tatum and Brown, these are both all stars, so
Well, and I
I think
think
you are in a
that's
situation where you fill out the rest of the roster. You know?
I think that's what this extension kind of shows is it is from Boston's standpoint, they say, okay, we believe in our core. Last year wasn't great, but we believe in our core. And instead of, I guess, in a way, blowing it up, we're going to keep our guys and we're going to build around them instead of going out and getting a next big star or something like that. I think that's a big thing that this specific deal kind of sends to the rest of the league, but also the team, you know?
Yeah, well, and I mean, the Celtics offseason has been pretty busy too. Like you bring
Mhm.
Al Horford back in the mix.
Mhm.
Tristan Thompson is gone. Kemba Walker is gone. Enos Kanter's back in the mix in Boston. So they filled out the roster. Like it's different than it is last year. Obviously, Fournier signed that big extension with the Knicks as
Yeah.
well. He was only there half a year, so I'm not, counting him as much as I am with some of these other guys that have been there recently. But Boston has shook the roster up. Dennis Schroeder's in the mix now on that 1 year deal. So they're good. Like I said, they're doubling down on their core. They're betting on it. I think it's a smart smart bet, and no pun intended. And I think all these guys that they have around them, like if they need to get into a situation where they want to fill out the max spot for Tatum and Brown and go after a third guy, like all these contracts are movable. They have useful players.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And that's what I think it is. It's saying we believe in our guys and we're going to give them the money they deserve and we're going to run it back in a way with a new supporting cast.
So real quick before Ballin and Fallin, it kind of pivots well. Former Celtic as well, Terry Rozier signing a 4 year, $97 million extension with the Charlotte Hornets. Super bounce back year for Scary Terry. His first year in Charlotte, not that great. Kind of
Hmm.
looked like he was going to be out of the mix a little bit. And instead responded with the best year of his career last year. So, well done for Terry. I think this is a good signing for Charlotte. Again, given what he gave them last year, I think we've seen more good than bad out of Terry at this point. He as crazy as it sounds, he's one of their vets essentially with these young guys that are coming in with LaMelo Ball and with Book Knight and this other core that they're building right now. So, given the play of him last year, I think some will say it's a slight overpay, but I like this deal for Charlotte. I thought he gave them a lot last year.
Yeah, I think I think it's one of those things where the Hornets in general have a very interesting group of guys, and it's one of the teams I'm very intrigued in general about to see next year, you know? And Terry Rozier is a big part of that. He's one of their, I guess you would say, stars. And so you keep him around and you give him the max extension, and we run it back, I guess, next year, technically. You know, it gives them a lot of time to kind of build whatever the Charlotte Hornets are trying to build right now. I mean, you got them through 25-26 season. So, you know, it gives them some wiggle room down the line to kind of move around, and we'll see where we are with, you know, Ball and all that in a few years from now.
Well, so and Terry Rozier is 27. So
Yeah.
in theory, he's in the prime of his career. It is a little bit of a bet in Charlotte that he's going to continue to do what he did last year. I mean, he's fifth in the league in three-pointers last year, made in the entire league.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, he was their go-to scorer for a lot of points. They haven't really made any splashes, so it's one of those situations too where you have to pay somebody eventually. Like a lot of these young guys are still on rookie contracts, obviously. I mean, Charlotte, in terms of entertainment, I think it is going to be just one of the better watches. Like they're a league pass team for me for sure. Um, but I guess my short version of this is that yeah, it's a little bit of a bet for Charlotte, but I think this is the type of bet that you take, and he's got a skill set that it's going to be movable if the day comes. So I think this is a good signing for Charlotte.
I thought it was interesting. I have seen a tweet from the Ringer now about it. It said, Scary Terry just secured slots in as only the 19th largest deal in the NBA among guards. They said another way to put Terry Rozier making $97 million, which sounds wilder than it should be. Terry Rozier will be making a little less than CJ McCollum and a little more than Buddy Hield.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
League is changing. No, I mean,
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. These guys are getting paid, and that I mean, all these contracts that just seemed absurd a couple of years ago. Like the NBA is continuing to grow. We're getting $200 million contracts out for these guys. Um, who is it? Somebody. It was one of the max contracts that just got signed. I'm trying to remember which one it is, but it's at a point where guys are going to be getting like 700K a game soon, and it's just
probably.
like,
Oh,
man,
well, okay. Let me ask you this. Over under, if you had to guess, in the NBA last year, 24 let's say 24 players averaged at least 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game.
hmm
Would you say over or under that?
uh, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say over.
Well, I totally screwed it up, and it was right on the dot. 24 was the amount.
Oh,
So
okay.
I said it, and then as I realized I said it, I was like, well, if I go down, he's going to realize it's above, and if I go up, he's going to realize it's down.
I
So
was doing the math in my head real quick. I was trying to think. I mean, yeah, most teams I feel like have, somebody's got to score 20 on your roster. At that point, 4-4 isn't some crazy unattainable number. So,
now,
it's
and
30 teams in the league. It's almost just by elimination at that point.
which is, I mean, you're looking at the names. It's the names you would expect to be on that list, and so that's still exciting. Terry Rozier, by the way, one of them. So that's why I was bringing that up. But either way, excited for him and excited for the Charlotte Hornets because I would love to pay more attention to them, but I'm not going to do that if they're not doing well.
Oh, I'm watching. They're like I said, they're a top five league pass team for me. And this contract kind of matches up well too with Gordon Hayward. So, which is hilarious given that they're tied together still, given that Boston situation. And look at them now. Who'd have thought? All right,
Here,
who's
yeah,
balling? Yeah, not them. Who's balling? Who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before the bad. So for me this week, balling Kevin Durant. He has signed a partnership with Weed Maps.
what is this?
What is Weed Maps or what is
Yeah,
the partnership?
well, I know what a partnership is. What is Weed Maps?
I thought you want the details of it. I hope you know what a partnership is. Um, Weed Maps allows you to find dispensaries and get delivery in areas where
Ah,
that is legal. Obviously, if you are listening in a state where marijuana is legal, you can check that out.
get
Justin
the
and I
get
are.
the get the KD special. They'll give you a burner account. Hey.
Oh wow, wow. Somebody on Twitter said KD should be named Slim Reefer. I laughed way more at that than I should have.
Oh, I like that.
Um, but I mean, KD's reasoning, as he talked about, is he wants to, break the stigma around athletes and using marijuana. I think that is a great idea and that we should continue to break down those stigmas. I mean, it's a matter of time before marijuana is legal in the United States anyway. It's medically legal here in Florida right now, not recreationally yet. If it ever goes up for a vote, I feel like it would pass, to be honest, in Florida. But it's just like, yeah, of course I'm about this because I think, especially with athletes, a lot of times, look at what we've gone with in the past with opioids. That's been a
Hmm.
huge issue in the NFL in particular, where guys have been addicted to these painkillers that actually ruin your life where they found relief with marijuana, which spoiler alert doesn't ruin your life.
I agree. And I've been trying to look at Kevin Durant's other nicknames to think of weed strains that they should do, but we'll move on. My ballin is actually kind of a similar situation. Pistons,
Involves weed.
no, Pistons number one, but I bet you people that are very involved with weed also like Bitcoin. And so number one pick, Cade Cunningham, has a new endorsement deal with BlockFi that's apparently going to pay his endorsement signing bonuses in Bitcoin, which is also something Trevor Lawrence did. So this is kind of becoming a trend.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart people invested in Bitcoin, and that's my thing. Is like I'm not going to pretend to be a Bitcoin investor, or I'm not going to pretend to be a financial expert either. So
No.
please do not get it from me. But I mean, Bitcoin's been riding. It was down. I mean, as low as 30K, which
Uh,
is crazy because it was at like 2 years ago.
well,
It's
what
back up
was
around 47 as of recording this right now today. I mean, we're seeing more athletes do this. Like I said, I mean, I know Jack, the founder of Twitter, has invested heavily in this recently. There's just a lot of smart people. I still
we?
personally don't 100% get it or
I
crypto
don't need.
or NFT. Like, I'm not gonna again, not gonna
You
pretend to be
don't.
an
You don't want to
expert there.
buy Andre Drummond's NFT? By the
I,
way,
he's a Sixer
by the
now, so maybe
But
maybe I'm more
oh,
intrigued in it.
I didn't think about that. What's crazy is because remember how I put my email in for his NFT? I get updates. I get
Oh, that's
weekly
great.
updates.
And what's it going for? Have you paid 0.000000001 Ethereum yet?
No, not yet. Although I will say, what was it? I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, but either way, I get updates about it. And then with the Bitcoin stuff, man, I think back to college when we were like looking at that stuff. It was literally like you put in $1, you had a Bitcoin, and it's like way not the case
Oh
now. And
my
it's like,
god, dude, are you kidding me? You don't think when there's always on Twitter, someone like once a month will go, if you could tell your high school something advice, what would you give? And everybody tries to get real simple with it, or like real deep with it, and like, oh,
like,
don't
bro,
chase the girl, it
Bitcoin.
won't be worth it. It's like, yo, go back and buy Bitcoin, stupid.
Not
That's
even
the
that.
easy advice.
Not even that is like don't. What I would tell myself is don't use Bitcoin for what you were using it for. Just leave the money in there.
Wait, did you have Bitcoin back in the day and you spent it?
Yes,
Wait, what?
we used it. We used it to buy certain things while we were in college. Yes,
Uh,
and now I'm upset with myself because we used it to buy things.
why did I know that? Oh, I'm so sad for you. Jesus, why? How?
I probably at one point had like over $100 in there,
Oh
and
God.
to spend it.
I might have jumped off my roof, bro. And I feel like I know what you're. I feel like I know what you're buying because there's only certain things you buy on the dark web, and I don't think you're
Sure,
buying an AK-47. So,
I will leave that
allegedly,
open.
allegedly, by the way, this is all
Right.
allegedly.
I will allegedly let you believe what I allegedly might have been doing with the alleged Bitcoin that I allegedly had money in.
Did I miss that? Like, did I miss out on that in college? Was that a phase? Was that a thing at Flagler?
It was a thing at Flagler, but it was because of one of our buddies specifically was pushing it on us, like telling us to use it, thinking
Oh,
that it was. I remember we graduated and he came out to me. He's like, "Yo, Bitcoin, man, it's the future." And I was like, "Okay, you're crazy." And then now look at him. He's probably rich as hell, living in Massachusetts somewhere. Um, yeah, Mateus. Wonder how he's doing.
yeah. Shout to Mateus one time. Uh, All right, fallen for me this week is it's weird because it's kind of not a fallen in a way. But it's also it's anyway. It's 2015 Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic was talking about just everybody they were talking about that welcome to the league moment. And so in a way, because I almost put this as balling for Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan obviously hasn't played in a while. But Jokic said with Duncan back in 2015 that he gave him the easiest 20 points he's ever had in his career. He said, quote, he didn't even feel me when he was asked. Duncan had 21 points, 7 and 2 in that game. He was 9 of 15 from the line. Obviously, Jokic has come a long way from 2015. I mean, hell, he was behind Nurkic on the depth chart in Denver at that point. I remember when that was a whole discussion. But I always enjoy NBA players when they talk about their baptism stories.
Well, and that's everyone has to have that kind of moment, like in all sports there is a moment like that for a rookie or a younger player in the league, and when they're a little more noticeable like that, then you got to have it.
Yeah.
My fallen is video from Looney's basketball camp. Have you seen this?
I saw the headline that he got that some kid,
And he
I
got
guess
no,
crossed him or something. What happened?
the kid crossed him. Like it got, and like I was thinking, I was like, oh, maybe like he didn't try that hard, and it looked like it. It's like, nope, he got him pretty good, and the crowd goes wild, and so R.I.P. to the Warriors and that whole situation and their defense.
Yeah, I don't even know how that happens, honestly. I got to watch this video. I did see it on NBA Reddit, so come on, Looney. Just I know he's a big man, but I mean, fam, like, was this kid what kind of campers are we talking about? Are these
uh
D1 prospects, or are these is this a 6-year-old?
no, he's older. I would be willing to guess a high schooler.
I mean, this happens though. I guess. Remember when LeBron got dunked on in 2011, and then Nike tried to scrub it from the internet?
I do kind of remember
It
that.
was
Yeah.
crazy. He got dunked on by some random D1 kid in a practice, and boy, they tried to hide that footage. It was like, good lord, it was I was trying to I was doing some deep level research. I was going to have to go on the dark web and use my Bitcoin to pay for that LeBron footage.
I wonder if I could even find that right now. How hard LeBron? The problem is, I'm spelling it all wrong.
I'm
Dunked
looking too. I'm going to do a
on
different search on
by
YouTube.
LeBron dunked on by high schooler.
I don't know who it was. Yeah, oh yeah, that's a
Yeah,
top search on YouTube. So.
oh yeah, it's the number one thing. Okay, well they failed miserably. I was wondering if they were successful in hiding that, but yeah.
Listen,
So
videos of a dunk on LeBron. TMZ posted this cell phone video. This was crazy. It was Jordan Crawford though, who was playing at Xavier, so he obviously was not just some random scrub.
okay. So either way, poor Looney, and that one's not going to go away anytime soon. It's probably going to be on ESPN the next few days.
What do you think ever happened to Jordan? He went pro, right?
Who? Jordan?
Jordan Crawford from Xavier. Was he in the league? I get okay. So he was in the league from 2010 to 2014. No, never mind. This isn't. Oh yeah, that was in 2010. Okay, so that makes sense because his first year would have been.
He went
His first year
27th
would have been with
overall.
Atlanta.
Yep. He was
And
with
then, I mean,
Atlanta. Yeah.
he's played overseas a lot. I'm trying to just make sure this timeline matches up because Jordan Crawford. Anyway, well, we don't need to do this live on the podcast, but we'll figure this out eventually. B-Ball Daily's got a video on it. Oh, here that I'm looking at YouTube, and I'm not gonna look at this now, but because it's way too long. But apparently, we'll see what happens to him. But yeah, shout out to Jordan Crawford. That's definitely one he's still telling.
Yeah, for sure. And a story that's being told now, and if you have Netflix, you can go watch it, is the Malice at the Palace documentary.
Yeah.
Here's my timeline of feelings. The very beginning, like the setup, the intro, the everything, I was thinking to myself, they're really going to try to spin this and make me feel bad for the players. There's no way that's going to happen. And that was before it started. That was as they're going in, I could kind of see, I think it was Jackson was like, this is the last time you MFers are asking me about this. Last time I'm talking about it, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, they're going to try to make me feel bad for these players. I'm not going to feel bad for them at all. So then my next thought was, why is everyone buying these old ass TVs and putting them in the middle of basketball courts? Just show the whole screen. But I figured that was an artistic approach to the documentary, so I'll let that one slide. I did at the end feel bad for Jermaine O'Neal. I really felt like he got messed up from it. And that was the main takeaway that I had is he somehow ended up being the one that had to take the brunt of the whole thing, and he wasn't the one that really even went in the stands, like, he sucker punched a fan, of course, but he didn't go in the stands, and he's the one that kinda got the most of it, it seemed like, at least at the end, who was still emotionally scarred from it and hurting from it, and that's not saying the other guys involved weren't. It just felt like he was the one that felt like he had the burden placed on him the most.
Well, there were a couple of things. I mean, yeah, Jermaine O'Neal was a six-time All-Star. Like
Yeah.
that gets lost. Jermaine O'Neal, I remember watching. He was great for Indy when he was in his prime. Like,
It was interesting seeing the dynamic between Jermaine O'Neal and the players and the intensity that he had and the hate that he had for players when they essentially and I think it might have been Jackson too was talking about it is like, we're family, we ride together, and when players would leave, it would like hurt them. Like they would physically feel it.
well, so and with the doc itself, like I thought it was a little long, um, in the sense that in the sense that they did a lot of the setup for the
Sure.
documentary, like setting up the indie season. But I do also appreciate the context there because that's the thing. Like in the aftermath of that season, that indie team was legit contender that year, and obviously it was over after that. There
Yeah.
was no chance of anything. I guess my biggest takeaway overall was just that, like, yeah, nobody was sympathetic to the players when this happened, and I feel like a lot of people should have been a lot more sympathetic. Like that one dude tried to go on the court and just square up with Ron Artest. Like at that point, yeah, if I'm an NBA player, I'm beating the hell out of you if you come on the court.
And he
Like
got him
these
good.
guys
Like,
are
yeah.
unprotected at that point. Like you've got a mob of angry fans in your
Yeah.
rival arena that are stirred up. Now, like I don't think any of them have weapons, but there's a whole lot of them, and you just don't know. Like crazier
Yeah.
things have happened. We see this happen all the time. And so I think this situation where I mean to me, it was amazing that I don't think that the security at Detroit, like, and we've seen it obviously heavily increase since then, but they just let this happen essentially. Like
Mhm.
they basically said, "Hey, we're not dealing with this. We're going to let y'all handle it." And that's where obviously then you see the videos of guys going up in the stands. I guess I was bothered too by the lack of remorse that just the fans had, where it's like, no, you ruined people's lives. Like you were the spectator, you paid money to go there, and like it's just a reminder that like these athletes aren't circus animals.
Right. I was bothered by the lack of empathy from the fans' standpoint. I also didn't know, I think it was Ben Wallace's father or a significant other or somebody close to him had passed away that game.
Mhm.
I think Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, whatever you want to call him. I think he mentioned that. I also like that. Was it Chauncey Billups? Someone mentioned that if Jermaine O'Neal hadn't slipped in the sucker punch, he would have killed that dude. The dude who
Oh
was,
yeah.
yeah.
100%. Like that's one of the big like that dude was going down hard
Mhm.
if that punch connected. Like thank God that punch didn't connect. I mean, literally one of the most infamous punch in the NBA was when Kermit Washington punched Rudy T. I mean, and that was Tom Jonovich, like he was ruined after
Yeah.
that for a while. Like I think he came back and played and obviously went on to coach and become a Hall of Fame coach and was super successful with Houston. But I mean, he had like spinal fluid from his brain leaking into his mouth. Like he almost died when he got
Yeah.
clocked on hardwood like that. So
Well, and to that, they or at least with the documentary is you look back and the owners and is talking about how they were trying to put this team together and you're looking at it, you're almost watching it develop and you're like, "Oh my God, how did you not see this coming?" You had a team of Steven Jackson, Ron Artest, and Jermaine O'Neal, all these dogs who are just ready to fight somebody, like they're just ready to go and it's going to boil over at some point and of course it's going to happen against the Pistons who are also the same mentality.
yeah, I mean there was Jim Gray, who was the ESPN reporter when that happened. Scott Pollard, who is an NBA player, who had a hilarious tweet the other day. I got to pull that up, which is probably the first Scott Pollard reference we've ever had on the podcast. But they talked about that. They said they're like, "Yo, we thought he was gonna like if he didn't slip, they're like we thought he was gonna kill him. Like it
Yeah.
was that type of punch." Obviously, like Jermaine O'Neal is a massive human being, so if it connects. I do though. I feel really bad for that. I'm glad that Steven Jackson and they got everybody. Ron Artest,
Sure.
Jermaine O'Neal, all these guys finally talked about it. Like I do. I think it was good to see their side of the situation. I do think the documentary did a great job at portraying how dangerous that situation was for those
Yeah.
guys and how much uncertainty was there. I guess again, it just goes back to my point where it's like, yeah, of course I feel bad for some of the fans who got caught up and genuinely didn't do anything. Like I think there were some fans who were innocent in all
Well,
this.
wasn't there a fan that got hit by the chair? Like, yeah, sure, that fan was probably because he was in that area, was probably yelling at the players and stuff like that. But like, he took a chair and had to get carted out. Like, I think I felt bad for that guy because it's like, yeah, you were probably being a, what, but at the same time, you don't deserve a chair to the back of the head.
Yeah, of course. So the Scott Pollard tweet was from a day ago. Across the Cavs, which is a Cavaliers podcast, tweeted they did a on this day in Cavs. So it was August 18th, 2006. The Cavs signed Scott Pollard, and they added him in it. And Scott quote tweeted and said, and immediately went to the NBA Finals as a direct result. Hilarious! Like that is such an incredible random Twitter interaction, but I love it.
Those are the best kind. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that kind of stood out to me about the documentary.
Reggie Miller trying to continually play that he had nothing to do with it is hilarious. Because like Reggie's a notorious instigator, and I know he's tried to like tone that down in recent years. But he wasn't playing. But I loved how Reggie Miller like became the spokesman for it almost.
Well, and did
somehow.
you see they were saying that he didn't, or the cops didn't recognize him because he was in the suit, so they were trying to get him to leave, and he's like, "Bro, like, no, I'm not leaving." Which is
and that's why he got away with it essentially.
Yeah.
Like nobody gave him any flack for it. He just kind of ducked it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and so the last thing I guess I'll say on it as we wrap up here is I did find it interesting that Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, whatever you want to call him, I did find it interesting that he did feel guilt winning with the Lakers the next year because of the situation where he felt he was running away from Steven Jackson and Jermaine O'Neal, running away from the problem, instead of addressing it.
Oh, you're saying like when he was off the roster? I was saying because they didn't win the following year after. I mean,
no, I'm sorry. But he left. He left. His whole thing on it was he left and he went and won, and he felt guilty about it because he was supposed to win with the Pacers. Jeez, and to that, I kind of got what he was talking about, and I think they very quickly eluded it. They talked about how Steven and Jackson and Jermaine O'Neal were in the locker room and Ron Artest wasn't in there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Steven Jackson, I think it was Steven Jackson that said it, is like, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, Jermaine is going to kill this guy when he gets in here. Or it was they were in there and Jermaine wasn't in yet. So however it ended up. And they alluded to they quickly glossed over. Meta said something, Ron Artest said something like, you think we're going to get in trouble? And Steven Jackson said, like, it was a very quick mention, but it was implied that Jermaine O'Neal lost his you-know-what on him. I would love to be a fly on a wall for that locker room afterwards.
Of course, because it's just like, I don't even know what you think. And that was obviously great to hear that perspective as well. But like in that situation, it's like, y'all are just trying to even get to the locker room. And at that point, just get out of the arena. Like the blood was there. The bad blood was there from the Pistons and the Pacers, like already just being division rivals. But the fact that they were both super competitive at that time, like it played in the playoffs the year before. So it was already like a tense situation. And again, like, it can get nasty quick. Like that's an arena at that point. Like you said, it's about security and safety, and I think that that's the biggest thing that people got to remember. Because I mean, I remember everybody killing those guys back in the day. I mean, all of them. Like obviously, Artest missed the whole year. It blew up that team. There was just never a chance after that. You knew that Artest. I mean, you felt like Artest back in the day that there was just no chance that he was ever going to play again, and that's why he ended up with the Lakers. Steven Jackson had already been a champ by that point. He had won with San Antonio, but. Yeah, it's just like you said, just a super unfortunate situation. I mean, Jermaine O'Neal ended up being in the league till 2015, so that's great. But like you said, the reputation never switched. And I mean, like you said, it was nasty. Like Jermaine O'Neal had a folding chair thrown at him when he was walking out of the arena. Like it was nasty.
Well, and Reggie Miller implied that that situation was kind of why he retired. I didn't remember it that way, but that's kind of the way the documentary leaned, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
So
it was just basically over at that point. Reggie, like you said, had a long career by that
mhm,
point.
mhm. 18 seasons, right?
It's just a major what if for the Pacers then too. Of course, like you said, just the team has been close to, they've had runs since then. Obviously, the best one with Paul George and Lance
Sure.
Stevenson and Roy Hibbert in that whole run. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a big what if. Detroit, who, like we said, this all started with Ben Wallace, um, ended up going to win a title. So, for them, they got their moment in the aftermath of that. But it was a good doc. Definitely recommend it. It's short. It's not that long either. It's only about an hour.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
an hour.
yeah, so definitely a good quick watch for anybody who watches Netflix. Again, it's Untold, Malice at the Palace. So, and it's got all the main guys in it. Like that's the thing is like if I want to hear from Jermaine O'Neal, from Steven Jackson, from the security and the fans and the referees and everybody that was there that day, like I'm glad they were all willing to talk about it because, like we said, I don't.
Mhm.
These guys rightfully don't want to talk about it that much. So the fact that we all have this on the record now before they get too old either, while the memory is still, it's a while ago now. It's in '04, but still a little bit fresh in everybody's minds. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of this Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Hopefully, we are fresh in your minds moving forward. And guys, keep listening to us. If you're first time listeners, leave us a review on the podcast, good or bad. We will read them. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, TuneIn, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
And be sure to follow us on YouTube. You can watch a video version of the podcast. Just search Drive and Dish NBA, and we'll be there.